Actually, before we do that, I'm curious, Michael, your answer to this question, because the past couple of weeks talked about what we've been up to, what's keeping us busy, and you as a fellow worship leader, I can say, and as a musician in general, what have you been up to? What has been keeping you? Keeping your head on your body?
Yeah. So this year I got really into writing and producing original music. So my buddy John True, he's a fantastic producer, and I've been working with him weekly on just going in the studio, writing, producing, recording, and that has kept me sane. And it's almost like sacred time. Like every Wednesday, he and I are together, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Like that is uninterrupted sacred time that I have to just do that. And it's been awesome. And I feel like I'm creating more and doing more than I ever have before. And
what does that look like as, because you're a musician, you've written a lot of your songs, solo before you started working, I imagine, with John Chu, is that right?
John True.
John True, okay.
John Chu,
the director of...
Oh, that's what I'm thinking
That's right.
of.
That is what
okay.
Yes.
My bad. John True. Don't get it mixed up. Big deal.
They get that all
What's
the time.
What's it like to work with somebody after writing your own songs for so long and not having to collaborate per se? And what was it like getting used to that?
I mean, at first, there's a lot of stuff like with your art that you really hold on to tightly because it's like your baby and it's so precious, and you're like, oh, don't hurt my feelings by being honest about this. But then you really need people to be honest about it, because if it sucks, you should know. So I had to hold a lot of it loosely and get to the point with him where we have this relationship now where he's like, yeah, we can do better than that. Or no, I don't think that's where we want to go. And we have this rapport where, we can just shoot back and forth and play off each other about, hey, this isn't going to work. But I think you have to hold it loosely, or else you're going to die with your art.
I imagine that's hard.
Yeah.
To practice.
Yeah. Because you're it's like a piece of yourself. You're like, I'm going to get really vulnerable and write about these deep emotions. And then someone's like, I don't like that. And you're like, well, then you're saying you don't like me and you don't like my feelings.
Whoa.
And
that makes me nervous.
So you have to kind of separate yourself.
Jeez.
It's true. We kind of talked about that a couple of weeks ago, looking at your piece of art objectively and not finding that balance of putting yourself in your art and then, I'm creating something bigger than myself or other than myself.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
I'll be honest with you, I really struggle with that. I think when I start a project like a new podcast or something, I'm not writing music, it's not as intimate, but there are those feelings there where you're like, you put so much blood, sweat, and tears into something, even this podcast, and something as simple as having someone say hey, this wasn't great, or this bit didn't work out. You're like, oh man, you're right, but that's still really hard. I hate that you're right about this.
Okay, but what did you like about it?
Yeah.
Was there anything good about it?
Because it's good, it's constructed, and like I said, you're growing in those aspects.
Oh, totally. And then my cousin came over. He was he's unemployed like so many people, and he came out for a whole month, and he and I were writing and just doing a bunch of music stuff. And the crazy thing about working with him is we worked on a song he wrote, and me being like, this isn't my song, and I'm gonna have to tell you things that I think you're doing too much, and he'll tell you himself he writes a lot of parts and not all of them work. So just having to be like, this part's not working, and having to work with someone else on their stuff and to be like, how do I approach this delicately and tell you that something's not working?
You know how it feels to be on the other side
exactly.
of that.
It's okay, how would I want to hear that? But
jeez,
it's a lot of learning.
You ever find yourself recycling pieces that maybe didn't work in one song but end up being a whole different vision?
Oh, totally.
Really?
Totally.
Anything specific that you can think of?
Nothing at all.
Okay, all
but it's mostly
it's
like random guitar licks or a chord progression that I've been sitting on for 5 years. I'm like, I can't write anything over this. And then finally something happens. You're like, oh. Or there's one phrase that I love. If I'm like, I want to use this one lyric somewhere, and it'll be in a book for 10 years, then I'm like, it's now. Now's the time.
And you're going, is this really the time, or am I just trying to shoehorn that in? You're like, oh, this is the perfect song for standing in the garage with my friends.
Exactly.
No, that's not it. That's
hammering it in.
Yes,
totally. Pegging around whole moment.
Gotta work.
Yeah, absolutely.